Imagine a world for a second. A world completely 100% devoid of text messages, emails, books, or even street signs. I mean, it's almost impossible to picture given our text-heavy digital lives today, right? But long before writing existed, people relied entirely on spoken language to communicate. Every single piece of knowledge, every tradition, and every story literally had to be passed from one generation to another solely through human memory. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to look at exactly how humanity solved the ultimate communication bottleneck.
So how did humanity actually keep track of its world before the written word came along? Well, while they absolutely relied on passing stories and traditions down through memory, early humans also felt this deep innate urge to leave a permanent mark. Thousands of years ago, they began creating magnificent cave paintings. We're talking about incredibly detailed animals, hunting scenes, and these mysterious symbols painted on cave walls across Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia. Now, these paintings weren't true writing as we understand it today, but they were absolutely vital because they marked the very beginning of humanity's desire to record information permanently. Okay, let's dive into this. First, we'll look at the era before the written word. Then, we'll check out cuneiform as the very first script. After that, we'll decode Egyptian hieroglyphics together, and finally, we'll examine China's ancient oracle bones. Part 1. Before the written word, the limits of human memory. While early cave paintings across the continents were mysterious and undeniably beautiful, growing societies were running into a major problem. Memory simply wasn't cutting it anymore. You just couldn't rely on someone remembering every single granular detail of a complex, expanding civilization. In fact, you could argue that the greatest invention in human history was essentially born out of bureaucracy. As populations expanded, people desperately needed a permanent way to keep track of trade, agriculture, taxes, and important events. It was this highly practical, everyday need that actually gave birth to writing. Moving to part 2, cuneiform, the first script solving the problem in ancient Mesopotamia. To see how this massive tracking problem was solved, we're going to jump geographically over to ancient Mesopotamia, which is modern-day Iraq. Around 3200 BCE, the Sumerians developed the world's first known writing system, cuneiform. And just think about the sensory details of how this was actually done. It wasn't pen and paper, not even close. Using a reed stylus, scribes physically pressed these wedge-shaped marks directly into soft clay tablets. It was a highly tactile, three-dimensional way of recording the world around them. And the evolution of this script happened in these truly brilliant stages. At first, it was very literal. Symbols simply represented physical objects like, a sheep, some grain, or jars of oil. But over time, those symbols became far more abstract. And finally, they made this massive conceptual leap, evolving to represent actual sounds and words rather than just physical things. That is a total game changer. What is truly staggering here is the durability of cuneiform. This wasn't some passing trend. This system was used for more than 3,000 years. For 3 millennia, people used these wedge-shaped marks to record business transactions, complex laws, scientific knowledge, and even literature. In fact, one of the oldest surviving literary works in human history, the Epic of Gilgamesh, was written in this exact cuneiform script. Let's head to part 3, decoding Egyptian hieroglyphics, art and sound combined. Around the exact same time that the Sumerians were pressing styluses into clay, ancient Egyptians were creating another truly remarkable system of their own, hieroglyphics. These combined beautiful pictures with sound-based symbols, and these weren't just practical ledgers for trucking grain. They were highly decorative. They richly adorned temples, monuments, pyramids, and tombs to permanently record the grand achievements of pharaohs, their deeply held religious beliefs, and even the rhythms of daily life.
But for a very long time, this incredible historical record was entirely locked away from us. For centuries, nobody in the world could actually read these beautiful hieroglyphs. The meaning behind all those pictures on those grand monuments had become a complete, totally unreadable historical mystery.
That is, of course, until this specific year, 1799. This was the year of a thrilling breakthrough that quite literally changed our understanding of human history forever. In 1799, the Rosetta Stone was discovered. And the reason this single chunk of stone was the absolute key to unlocking ancient Egyptian writing is that it incredibly contained the exact same text written in 3 different scripts. Because scholars could already read one of the other scripts, this triple script translation is what finally allowed them to decipher the ancient Egyptian writing that had been an unsolvable puzzle for centuries. It was basically the ultimate translation cheat code.
And now, Part 4. China's Ancient Oracle Bones, the Dawn of Characters.
Meanwhile, as writing developed in the Middle East and North Africa, another great tradition was forming over in China more than 3,000 years ago. And it began with a highly visceral method. Early Chinese writing featured inscriptions carved directly onto oracle bones, which were used specifically for divination. It was a profound, deeply spiritual use of the written word, physically etched right into bone. This really illustrates a fundamental difference in how writing systems function. In alphabetic systems, which, many of us are used to, symbols represent individual letters. But Chinese characters generally represent entire words or meaningful conceptual units, rather than just single letters. It's a completely different way of structuring thought on a page. And the staggering longevity of this system is just incredible to think about. Despite thousands of years of change, many modern Chinese characters can still be traced directly back to those ancient symbols carved on bone. And the legacy certainly didn't stop there. Chinese writing had a massive regional influence, heavily shaping the writing systems of neighboring countries like Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. Taking a step back for a second, the sheer scale of this human journey is just breathtaking. From 3200 BCE, when the Sumerians developed cuneiform, to over 3,000 years ago with Chinese oracle bones, all the way to 1799 CE when the Rosetta Stone unlocked Egypt's past, it beautifully illustrates humanity's relentless parallel drive to record information across totally different eras and continents. Ultimately, it's fascinating to see how diverse cultures brilliantly solved the exact same human problem, moving beyond the fragile limits of memory, but by using completely different tools and mediums. Mesopotamia used soft clay tablets. Ancient Egypt used grand monuments and tombs. Ancient China used characters carved directly into oracle bones. It's the exact same human need with entirely different, completely ingenious executions. Which leaves us with a pretty massive thought to chew on. We have journeyed all the way from pressing styluses into chunks of clay to tapping on glowing glass screens filled with digital code. If our methods of recording knowledge have evolved this drastically over thousands of years, how will humanity permanently record its knowledge next? Think about those ancient origins of communication the next time you fire off a quick text message today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the big questions.